Welcome back, everybody. I'm Tommy McCarthy. This is Let's Talk Cyber. I'm delighted to welcome along for the very first time another member of Mattermost, the one and only James Mullins. He's the Vice President of Sales for the UK, Asia Pac, the rest of the world, and definitely the universe. Mattermost are going places. James, welcome to Let's Talk Cyber.
Thank you very much, Tommy. Very pleased to be here.
Wonderful, James. I know it's been a pretty busy start to the year. You're on the road. You're very, very rarely in the UK at the moment. Delighted you found the time to join us today. Interestingly, James, we're going to speak about something that really should resonate with most decision makers and people that need to understand their exposure when it comes to communications. We're going to talk about how Plan B is the new Plan A. Quite interesting. The rise of out-of-bound resilience, James. So we're going to talk a little bit about communications and out-of-bound resilience and what it all means. But before we do, James, give us a snapshot about you. Who are you, James? What have you done in the past and where are you now?
Very, very, very good question. So I've been kind of working in and around defense, intelligence, cybersecurity for about the last 25 years, mainly providing software solutions into those groups globally. Prior to that, kind of grew up kind of in the world of telecommunications, cut my teeth with kind of British Telecom. So yeah, very, very kind of interesting career, I think.
Wonderful, James. Wonderful and natural. So obviously you're a man that knows a thing or two about communications, which is perfect. Couldn't be better suited for this particular podcast, which I know is going to work really well for the great exercise you're going to be running this year at Cyber UK, which we're really looking forward to. But we spend millions, James, on secure emails and Teams. Why do we need an out-of-bound platform at all? So what's the point? Why do we need one?
Great question, Tommy. So what we're seeing is that kind of the hostile cyber activity is becoming more and more sophisticated. If an attacker can actually compromise your primary environment that we talked about, those kind of secure emails and Teams, etc., they're very likely to have access to your email and other chat applications. Okay, and that's the problem that we're seeing. So when you actually then use those same tools to actually manage the breach, which you actually incur, you're basically handing over your crown jewels to the attacker. They can see what you're doing. So ideally what you need is a kind of platform that's logically and physically separated, that sovereign infrastructure. So your response team and actually your wider organization can actually communicate without the attacker listening in or in fact locking you out.
Yeah, James, really interesting, actually. And it's great because it takes me back to the point I just made there about the workshop that you're going to be hosting at Cyber UK on when communications fail, which in itself is quite interesting. If I take myself back to the Maersk incident, when everything went offline and they were using WhatsApps and everything else, I mean, really basic, rudimentary communications sort of technology. What's the biggest mistake that you see that leadership make in the first 60 minutes, actually, of a breach? What are the obvious mistakes that leadership make within that 60 minutes?
Yeah, I think the biggest mistake that we see is actually indecision, and that's caused by typically a lack of, rehearsed governance. We see organizations like the NCSC, state organizations, to recover better, they've got to plan for the worst, right? And actually rehearse that continuity. And I think that's the biggest challenge that we see today is that people almost, kind of have a strategy of hope, right? We won't be breached. We hope we're going to be okay, etc. So I think that's the biggest item. So I think in those first 60 minutes, if leadership is still debating, as you kind of mentioned, which kind of WhatsApp group should we use, right? Or kind of which PDF should we go to for that incident plan, you've already lost. We've seen lots of different kind of attacks. You mentioned Maersk, there's others that we could talk about as well. But really, to us, that good, governance means having a pre-configured, secure, essentially war room, right? That's ready to go from the moment the alarm sounds.
Yeah, and James, you're absolutely right. And again, you touched on NCSE, the National Cybersecurity Centre. I guess if somebody's going to have to drive and direct people as to the things that they should be considering and doing, who better than our National Cybersecurity Centre?
Absolutely.
That at least gives us all a bit of cohesion to understand what to do, where to go, who to turn to. They emphasize resilience, the National Cybersecurity Centre. So how does a platform like the Mattermost platform actually improve organizations' recovery posture? It's all right talking about being resilient, but what does the Mattermost platform do that supports that recovery?
Yeah, again, great question. Thanks, Tommy. So resilience really is a critical enabler of any organization. It doesn't matter if you're a high street kind of retailer, you could be a car manufacturer, bank, government entity, critical national infrastructure, really anyone that's holding data. What we try and do at Mattermost is actually improve your recovery by digitizing essentially your cyber governance, your code of practice that you've got internally to actually kind of recover from some kind of threat. And so what we're not providing is just a capability to communicate when other systems have been actually compromised. What we're also providing are the playbooks or the digitized playbooks that will actually empower that organization to manage their crisis efficiently, effectively, and actually try and recover as quickly as they can. So everything that you term in terms of those kind of, codes of practice are actually mapped into Mattermost, easy to easy to actually access, and actually very kind of ready to execute upon.
Yeah, well, it's interesting, James, because as we all know, in most cases, the bad boys, the hackers, they're inside your network, they're monitoring networks, and they do
Correct.
that for quite some significant time
Absolutely
before
correct.
they choose when to attack. So from an attacker perspective, monitoring networks, can they see what's happening in an out-of-bound channel? How does it work? I mean, what can they see, these hackers?
Yeah. Not if it's truly out of band. So, yeah, the NCSC again warns of those kind of sophisticated threats that are targeting national security, critical national infrastructure, and other enterprises by deploying capabilities like Mattermost on a separate network segment or in a kind of secure private cloud. You create a blind spot, and that's the really important thing here, right? It's that blind spot for the attackers. So they might see your main network, and actually kind of in the kind of when you get compromised, that's going to go dark for you, okay. But what they can't see now is that encrypted, coordinated kind of collaboration tool in the background. That's that kind of out of band channel for you.
Yeah, so basically the lights are off.
Correct.
So the lights are off and they're not going to get anywhere. Well, James, we'll keep making reference to the National Cybersecurity Centre. As you know, annually they host the Cyber UK event, which is it's the premium flagship event for cybersecurity in the UK on an annual basis. And it's coming to Scotland this year, to Glasgow, the wonderful city of Glasgow. And I'm delighted to see that Mattermost are going to be hosting quite a dynamic cyber breach workshop to talk about out-of-bounds communications, to educate these senior leaders about the challenges they've got. And obviously, you're being supported by an NCSE assured trainer, Richard Priest. What would be your expectation for those CISOs that attend this workshop? I mean, it's okay turning up and going through the motions, but what are the kind of things you would expect these CISOs to go back and check the Monday morning after Cyber UK? Not so much from a fear factor perspective, but from an education perspective. What would be the most important things you'd expect these guys to be looking at doing?
Yeah. By the way, Tommy, thanks for bringing it up. We're very much looking forward to actually attending the Cyber UK and actually kind of having Richard join us within our little exercise. So the one big thing for me, and it's a simple one, is just simply go away and check your communication redundancy. Okay, what does it look like, right? Ask yourself on that Monday morning, if our primary communication provider was compromised in some way, shape or form, how would my team talk to each other? And if your only plan is to use, as we mentioned a couple of times now, a consumer app like WhatsApp, you are not meeting the board level priority for secure governance, right? Which you're going to need in the event of a breach. So also, if you're using tools like WhatsApp or others like those, you're losing compliance, you're losing auditability of that breach. What happens afterwards? What did you do? How did you do it, etc. So it's kind of go back, check the redundancy. Surely you've got a hardened, private and tested plan B, right? That plan B that's kind of ready for any incident which you may have.
Yeah, James, honestly, we're really excited about this particular Cyber UK because of the collaborations that we're seeing. It's not just another event to turn up and listen to vendors selling you this and selling you that. It's actually getting involved on a hands-on basis. I'm really excited to see exactly how Mattermost collaborate with industry, not just selling products and thank you very much, we've got your money, see you later, but how your collaboration works much more effectively. If you're out there listening right now, you're the decision maker, you're the CISO, you're somebody that has to take responsibility for things like your out of bounds, obviously communications. Make sure if you're at Cyber UK, you check out the Mattermost workshop. It's on the 23rd. It's at 11 o'clock till 11:50. If you can register in advance, please make sure that you do so. Don't miss out that opportunity. James, I wish we had more time today, but unfortunately it's come to an end. We've stayed on track. James Mullins, delighted to have you join me today on Let's Talk Cyber. Thanks very much for coming along.
Thank you very much for having us on board here, Tommy.